Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for May's Festival Forum. I'm Caitlin Patton. I'm the Executive Director of the National Music Festival and your host for this evening's edition of the Festival Forum. With me tonight is Dana Goode, who has been one of the violin mentors for the National Music Festival since our very first season. Dana, welcome, and thanks so much for being a part of our Festival Forum series.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
It's great to see you.
Thanks. Yes. I wish it were in person, but we're making it work, right?
That's right. Yes. And we look forward to seeing you in person next June when surely things will be back to normal and we can have the NMF that we know and love and miss.
Yes, for sure.
We're going to talk a little bit about the festival and about you, and we have a couple of pieces of music to play, which we'll get to a little bit later. But I wanted to start by chatting about your involvement with the National Music Festival over these past 10 years. It's hard to believe it's been 10 years already, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Um, and we feel so lucky to be doing this work in a great community like Chestertown and Kent County. And I wanted to start by asking, in your experience of coming to NMF, what makes Chestertown and the Kent County area such a special place to come and play music?
Oh, what a great question. I have just been so encouraged and welcomed and find the audience so um, involved in what's going on and so interested in supporting the students. It's been a great experience for the students and for the mentors
Mhm.
because all the time that we spend there, it's while we're still working, it's also very much a time of relaxing and being able to network, I should say, exchange with each other and enjoy the time there. And I think that especially the people of Chestertown and just that community are so welcoming and so supportive of the festival that it makes every concert such a special experience.
Mhm. Just a quick aside, Dana, there was a note in the chat just now asking if it would be possible for you to turn up the volume on your microphone. You're quiet
I
on
will
the other
check and
end.
see. We'll check and see. Let's see. I might have to let me make my view of you a little bit smaller. Let me exit full screen. Okay, let's see. Um, that's that. Let's do this. Yeah, I'm at 100%, but I can get closer and talk louder.
That works too. So in addition to everything you just said, which is my experience as well of doing the festival in this community, what keeps you coming back to NMF year after year?
That's also good. Um, Of course, the first part is the students.
Yeah.
The second part is the repertoire and working with Richard and you, which is so fun. It's always just the way you do the programming and the way the people that you get who are the other mentors and the students who are recruited are always outstanding and different every year. I love to see how many people come back
Mhm.
and would love to be asked back. Would love to have done it for the last 10 years if they could have. Um, but mainly it's also for the environment of Chestertown. I mean, not mainly, but in a large part for the environment of Chestertown. And I have such a fabulous host family, and they've become very close friends of mine. And I so many people that I know now within the community. It's uh, it's been so difficult to miss that in
Mhm.
the past couple of years. I've really, it's been very hard to not have it, and I'm very much looking forward to having it come back.
We are too. It's very strange, especially right now going into Memorial Day weekend. It's very strange here in Kent County right now. This would normally be Tea Party weekend when we'd have loads of people coming to Chestertown from all over, which would also typically be the time that we would open festival headquarters at the visitor center, is usually the Saturday of Tea Party
Right.
weekend. In a normal year, my arts administration apprentices would already be here and already be working. So it's very strange for Richard and for me. I think I can speak for Richard in saying that. That it feels sort of being untethered from my sense of time, because the usual things that
Yes,
tell me where we are in the year are not happening.
exactly. Exactly. It feels like that for me too. All of my normal sequence of performances and people I get to see and interact with and enjoy. I mean, that's the same for all of us, I'm sure.
Yeah. We're gonna listen to some music in a moment, but before we do that, I'm just curious on the topic that we've sort of inevitably stumbled on of the pandemic. I'm just curious to know, have you done any live in-person performances yet since everything started, or?
Actually, no live ones. I've done a couple of recordings for Bach Plus in Annapolis, and also for Lancaster Symphony, we did a nice Shostakovich and Tchaikovsky and things, but it's been very, very limited and um, really virtually no live performances whatsoever. So I know some venues are doing that, but it's quite limited and it hasn't been any of the groups that I've been involved in. So it's been just a total, like you say, a total. It's like being in a time warp. It's like everything's on hold, and I can't tell how much time is passing
Right.
because I just keep waiting for things to normalize. And so hopefully that'll come soon.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I'm lucky if I know what day of the week it is at this point. Um, so let's listen to some music. This is the first movement of Mendelssohn's String Octet. This is from the very first NMF season.
Oh, in
Dana
Floyd,
played in this
in Floyd.
ensemble, and in Floyd, yes. And for those who don't know, if in Floyd, Virginia, which is where the very first NMF season took place. And then the next year we moved to Chestertown. So this recording is from a performance on June 8th, 2011. It will
At
just,
that wonderful winery.
yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see, it'll just take me a second to pull up the recording. Here we go. What great fun that piece is.
Oh, that was so wonderful. And also working with the students it was great. I think in that group we were three mentors
Mhm.
or two. Catherine, was it three? I think it was three. Yeah. And the other five were all students. So
Yeah.
they did an awesome job. Really wonderful. That's quite a difficult piece in the repertoire.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive, I think, especially for a first season. So it was fun to
It,
hear that recording. I doubt I've listened to it since 2011.
I have never heard it. So
Uh,
it was fun.
So we're going to talk a little bit more about working with the students. But before we do that, I just wanted to mention, for those of us listening in tonight here on Zoom or on the Facebook live stream, the first and last images that were paired with that recording, since we don't have video footage of most of the concerts, just
Uh-huh.
the audio,
Right.
but the
Right.
first and last images were from the dress rehearsal. Sadly, we don't have any pictures from the actual performance that day on June 8th in 2011. And that performance took place at Chateau Morissette, which is a wonderful winery near Floyd. And the chickens and violin pictures in the middle were photographs that Richard took. Chestertown is a fairly rural area, but Floyd even more so. And so for that very first season, I remember Richard staged some pictures with the violin, um, not my good violin, but a
Right.
lesser
Right.
instrument, sitting on the grass with our chickens walking around it, and took some photographs of that. And I think some of them made it into the program book that year.
That was, yeah, great idea. And we had the folk music festival on Saturday nights where all the students would interact with people that would come out to just play on the bridge and in the
Mhm.
various locales. I mean, say various, there weren't that many, but it was
Right.
really cool that it was, yeah, a lot of folk music. They had a lot of different exposure for the kids of stuff. And we had the rehearsals also at was it an art gallery community center?
Yes, that's
Was that
right.
what?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
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 So let's talk about what it's like to work with the apprentices. As I know you've mentioned already a couple of times what a wonderful experience it is to work with the apprentices who come to NMF. I'd love to hear more about what it's like working with the students and what does a typical day look like for you at NMF, aside from busy, because I know that we keep you all very busy during the festival.
Yes, in fact, it's kind of legendary sending pictures home to my kids of what my hand looks like at the end of the day from all that because of playing for 14 hours. But it never feels like that while you're in the middle of it. Um, it's very, very engaging. And so often we go through rehearsals and then teach over the lunch break, which is not really a lunch break. You start teaching and then you rehearse some more. And then if you're doing one of the chamber music performances afterwards, um, but that's part of the excitement, and it's part of what also gets the kids so involved and excited about how wonderful this profession can be, and being able to interact with all the different mentors. I think is part of what is so great about creating a festival like this and allowing the students an opportunity to come together. And one of the things that's unique about this festival, because I do a couple of other ones in the summers as well. But this one um, really has a wonderful focus on different kinds of music and the way that the kids are featured and the way that the chamber music is interspersed with the other kinds of orchestral performances, and that Richard focuses on sometimes on unusual symphonic repertoire and unusual chamber music stuff. And I think that's part of what attracts the students, and it's also part of what attracts the mentors, because we're not just always doing the same. It's like, okay, let's go teach the same stuff. And that particular experience there with the Mendelssohn was one where I had never performed that with students.
Uh-huh.
And so it was very gratifying. It was very wonderful to work through it, coaching them. And I was just really, really happy also at how excited everybody was at the end of the performance, and just the general atmosphere always, especially in Chestertown. it's wonderful weather and wonderful atmosphere, and I think that's such a gratifying thing for all the students and the mentors as well.
Yeah. And you're also one of the things that or some of the things that you're hopefully coaching the apprentices on. There's also a lot of not just, how to play the instrument better, but how to be a successful member of an orchestra. And I think you in particular have done a lot with that with the apprentices. And I mean, sometimes even things as simple as don't forget your pencil, mark your music. So,
Yes, that's a favorite of mine. Yes. Yeah.
yeah. Are there other little tidbits like that? I think it's interesting for those who maybe haven't had the experience of playing in an orchestra, who come to the concerts and see the orchestra but don't know what it's like to actually rehearse as a member of an orchestra. Are there, aside from bring your pencil and mark your music as necessary, are there other little tips and tidbits that you try to impart to the apprentices during the orchestra rehearsals?
Well, and that certainly has evolved over the years too. Um, Partly it's attire on stage,
Mm.
what is professional and what is expected. And the other thing is now kids are having their cell phones so that while, to not be distracted in rehearsal, you need to have your cell phone off. And now that I would never have imagined would be some kind of thing that you would need to talk to people about, but it's true. And also just in rehearsal, rehearsal etiquette of who asks questions of the conductor. So there's this certain, it's not really a hierarchy, but it keeps it from being chaotic. So
Yeah.
that within a section, the section works with their section leader, and the section leader discusses with the conductor. And so sometimes kids haven't had that experience,
Mhm.
and for them, this is the first time they're getting in a situation that's really a professional orchestral setup where they're expected to behave in that way. And not it's not just a matter of conforming to the norms, but of finding out the most efficient way and effective way to get the most out of a rehearsal and to keep it moving smoothly and quickly and to make the best performance you possibly can. So that's a great aspect of what happens at national.
Yeah. And that's exactly what we're trying to do, is to provide that experience of working however short a time, even if it's only 2 weeks, working in a professional atmosphere with expectations that are essentially the same expectations we would have of a fully professional ensemble. I mean, yes, we know they're students and you're coaching them and so forth, but they're also getting the experience of being in an ensemble where those expectations are in place.
Yes, exactly. And they're certainly going to need to take that with them as they move forward and progress. So that's something that we're giving them that's a very, very important component of what they're going to use in their professional lives.
Mhm. So we're going to switch gears just a little bit here because I'm curious to hear more about you and your musical career and journey, and have some questions that I hope will be interesting to everyone, and certainly to me, because even though I've known you for how long now, I don't know the answers to many of these questions, and I'm quite curious. So first of all, when and how did you start playing the violin, and how did you choose the violin as your instrument? And was it uh, last month, our festival forum was with Jeff Kiesecker, and NMF's bassoon mentor, and I asked him essentially the same question, and we had sort of an interesting chat about how the instruments that we end up playing are not always the first ones that we try.
Right,
So I'm
exactly.
curious to know, was violin your first instrument, or did you try something else and then come to violin?
Case in point, my daughter who ended up playing trombone after that. Yeah. Um, no, I started playing piano, which a lot of people did. And at that point, you didn't start when you were 3 years old
Mhm.
back in at my age. And but because my sister played the piano, basically, this is my older sister, and I just wanted to be like my older sister. And um And then really it was in the public school system in Dallas. And I specifically remember the little piece of paper where you signed to sign up. It was green. And I took it home to my mom and said, I want to play the violin. And that was it. Boom.
Great.
So yeah, I'm not sure why. They weren't major classical music fans.
Mhm.
Although my mother became much more of an opera expert even than I am later, um, living close to New York. So no, it was just violin was always it for me,
Yeah.
and I never try. I mean, I studied viola a little bit when I was in high school, and I played around with other instruments and learned to play the cello and stuff. But really, violin was always what I wanted to do.
Mhm. And did you keep up with piano, or did you stop playing piano when you got involved with playing the violin? Mm.
No, no, I did. I did. There was a big conflict of was I was going to major in piano or
Uh,
violin when I went to college. Yeah.
yes, I must say I wish I had kept up my own piano lessons. My keyboard skills are worse than limited. We'll put it that way.
No, it's great, and I wish I one of my goals is to try to build my own harpsichord
Oh,
later.
wow. Yeah.
But um, yeah, it's the deal also for professionals. As a pianist, if you're not a soloist, all you can do is either jazz, cocktail piano, or teach or something. And I thought, professionally as a violinist, I'm going to have a lot broader scope of things that I can do and will enjoy, and I
Yeah.
can keep the piano stuff up. So
Right. And when did you know that you wanted to pursue music as a career? Did you know that early on, or did you sort of have other career aspirations that you ended up not following because you chose to go into music instead?
that's an interesting question. No, you know what? Dallas had an awesome supportive system for the high schools,
Mhm.
and I was part of a small group of a chamber group that got to tour in Europe and the Middle East also when I was still in high school.
Mhm.
And I just completely got um, sucked into that. It was like that was clear to me instantly, like this is just so cool and so wonderful. And we had an awesome teacher, conductor person, although he didn't conduct when we were performing because it was just eight of us.
Mhm.
But um, that was, I'm quite sure my resume is out there, but we performed in the ruins of Carthage, and we were in Tunisia, and we were in Rome, and we were in London, and we were, so it was just, it was, to me, it was completely eye opening and an experience where it's like, this is what life is about right here. And also just that relationship with the chamber music group and the kinds of things that I was learning from the teachers that I had, those in, as a musician, that they were so just so expanded from what my world was in high school, and gave us so much that also is part of what I try to do with my students of say, I want to broaden your horizons, and I want to make this a thing where you're excited about it and you understand how much is opening up to you from the world.
Yeah, I love that. That's wonderful. So let's listen to a little more music. We have one more piece to share this evening. This is a piece called The Soldier's Blues by a composer named Fanos Semiotis. So, Dana, you and I both knew Fanos very well, you as a friend and colleague, me as a partner. Let's listen to the piece now, and then we can talk a little bit more. The whole piece is only about 12 minutes, so I thought we'd listen to the whole thing. This was a performance that you played in from NMF from June 9th, 2015. And just one more quick note before I start the video is that this was a piece that, this was actually the last piece that Fanos finished before he died. It was premiered after. But this was a piece that was written specifically to sort of not accompany in the musical sense, but go along with the Stravinsky piece, Soldier's Tale, which for the same group of instruments. So let's hear this and let's see. Here we go.
What a piece.
Yeah. Yeah, it was fun to hear that again. That's a great piece. And I bet it was fun to play, but also a bit challenging.
Oh, it was incredibly because Fanos was such an amazing violinist, but
Mhm.
at the same time, he knew the instrument so well that he composed well for it.
Yeah.
It's always, it's difficult to not be overpowered by all the winds, but he had set it up so that the range was always up in a place where it could be well featured within that. So it was, yeah, it's amazing. He was such an awesome musician and such a pleasure to have known him.
Yeah, and I love that second movement, which is basically violin cadenza, and you get to do so many cool things.
Yes, all those yes. A lot of harmonics and plucking and weird stuff. Yeah, it was very difficult.
Yes,
Yes.
it's the kind of thing that he would have enjoyed playing himself.
Yes, exactly, exactly. And he probably wouldn't have struggled with it at all.
So it was through Phanos that I first met you, which must have been
In
2000,
Easton,
was it like 2004, 2005?
you know what? It was a dinner after a concert from there was an orchestra on the Eastern Shore, and we had a concert in Easton at the music hall that used to be the movie theater.
At the
What
Avalon
was that?
Theater.
Yeah, the Avalon. It was at the Avalon. And we had a dinner afterwards, and all the musicians got together, and Faunus introduced us all to you at that point. So,
That's right.
yeah, it was a very wonderful evening, as I remember.
Yeah, Richard and I were just talking, I think it was yesterday, about the fact that both of us knew you separately before we met each other. And because you and Richard knew each other from Peabody, as I recall.
Yes.
And I can only
Yes.
think of one other person who we both knew separately, before we met each other. Um, so yeah, it's actually it was Julian Benishew is the other one. Uh,
Oh, really? Yeah.
for those who don't
Yeah.
know, Julian is was at the time and still is the conductor of the Mid-Atlantic Symphony, and I was briefly the executive director in what seems like the dark ages now. But of course, everything pre-pandemic feels like the dark ages at this point. It feels like a different lifetime. And Richard just texted me with the year that he met you.
Oh, what was it?
He says it was 1980.
That's possible. That is probably true because that's when I came to Peabody. And I remember we immediately were connected at Peabody. And yeah, I was so happy to see him again when you brought him back for the concert.
Mhm.
Yeah, that we played at the Catholic, what was it? St.
St. Ignatius in Baltimore.
Ignatius.
Right? We did, that was the first of two memorial concerts that we did for Phanos. Where we did a bunch of, I can't remember if we did the Soldiers Blues, but we did it. I think we did,
There
uh,
was an
or maybe that was
mm,
the second one.
I think it was the second one. I think there was another piece of Faunus's that we did on that concert. It was a
Right?
suite. Was
Yes,
it a yeah.
yes, we did a wonderful suite for string orchestra, which
Yes.
written for a youth orchestra, but is fairly tricky. We've done it at NMF maybe twice. And I've played in it a couple times, and it's for something that was written for a youth orchestra, I think it's fairly
Yeah.
challenging.
And
But
Richard did such an awesome job of pulling that together. He really, yeah.
yeah, and we've done a number of Fanos's compositions at NMF, and I'm sure we'll continue to do so. And at one point, we'd started to do some studio recordings of some of his pieces, which hopefully, when things are fully settled down and back to normal, we'll be able to pick up that project again at some point in the future.
Yeah.
Well, it is starting to get late. It's already 10 of 8. So we'll start to wrap up. But before we do, is there anything else that you wanted to say or talk about before we wrap up?
I would just I would just like to say that we certainly miss everybody in Chestertown. I know all the mentors feel the same way, and I really appreciate all the support that we've received all these years from the residents and the volunteers and the people that do everything from the board and the who are helping make this possible. I know how important it is, especially to the students, but also to the mentors. And um, it's just such a great project, and I'm so excited to see it come back. And I mean, for me personally, but also for so many other students for whom this kind of thing is just a really influential part of what their development is as professional musicians. So I want to express my gratitude to everybody who's been so supportive, especially to my host family, the Wades, and to everybody on the board that I've known for so long. And I just appreciate what you and Richard have done, Caitlin. It's really an amazing accomplishment, and I hope that it is strong and healthy in the future. And I really look forward to participating another in the future, another time.
Well, we miss having you and everyone else here in person in Chestertown and really look forward to June 2022. And I should mention for those who don't know that you are a former board member, so you know very well what it takes sort of behind the scenes to put on a festival of this scope every year.
Yes.
So Richard is planning to come back with a bang, so to speak, in June 2022. He's got some really exciting programs planned, and we are, even though it's still more than a year away, we are already working on it and really looking forward to it.
Yeah, that's great. I'm sure it's going to be wonderful, and I'm sure everybody will be so excited to see it happen.
Well, on that positive note, thank you so much for spending your evening with us. Thanks so much to everyone who tuned in to listen, whether on Zoom or on the Facebook stream tonight. It's great to have you with us. And thanks again, Dana. It's great to see you.
Wonderful to see you too, and thank you, Caitlin, for inviting me. I really appreciate being asked. And again, thank you to everyone who supports the festival.
Great. Thanks again, and have a good night, everyone.